Okay, so you've got a WolfX with error 10. Every Kaabo owner's worst nightmare. So if you look at the manual, it will tell you that error 10 is a communication failure or error or something like that. But what does that mean? Well, to better understand that, we need to know a few things more about the scooter and how it works. And then we'll get into troubleshooting. First of all, obviously, the battery provides energy to the controllers in the form of direct current. The controllers take that energy, that 60 volts in this case, and they cut it up to do a couple different things. One of those things, obviously, is to make the motor spin through these big heavy-duty phase wires, but it also sends some lower voltages, like some 5-volt kind of reference voltage, communication voltage, to a number of other instruments on the scooter, such as the switches, the hall voltage, the hall sensors and the motors. The display actually runs off the full voltage of the battery, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Basically, what we're looking for are all the places where that little 4 or 5 volt signal exists. And one of those places that we can start with is the hall sensors going to each of the motors. They receive, again, that 4 or 5 volt reference voltage from the controller. And while there is a separate error code, I think it's error 7, if there's a hall sensor failure on this scooter, sometimes if that voltage has disappeared completely, if the controller is no longer supplying it, then it's not supplying it not only to the halls but to other things as well, and it will read that as an error 10 communication failure. So one nice place to start is to set your meter to DC voltage and make sure the scooter's on, and then slide the red probe into the red wire where it goes back to the motor, and the black one on the black, and you should have like between 4 or 5 volts. So we've got 4.2 here, and that means that the controller is supplying that voltage back to the hall sensors in the motor. And if you don't have this voltage, either your meter's not right, or that has failed in the controller and you have to replace that controller. And pretty much once you get to this point, you should just replace this box anyway, because it can cause so many different problems. You should just eliminate that right now. Go ahead and replace this box. And when you do so, I recommend that you disconnect one cable at a time, move one cable over to the new box, plug it in, move another one, move it in, right? Don't just unplug everything and then wonder where they went, because that'll take a lot more time. And it's not like very logical. For example, you've got a brown wire that goes to a red connector, a red wire that goes to a yellow connector. So it's not intuitive. Just like I said, just connect one over here and plug it into the new box. Do it that way, one at a time. So usually the culprit, though, lies in these two connectors, because these are the connectors here that run up to these cables. Basically, you can see this connector here goes up and connects to the display, this switch, and the brake sensor. And this connector here runs up and goes to this switch and the brake sensor. And, you know, they did a real good job. Like, for some reason, they've got it so the wire comes down, it jumps into this hole, just so that it can jump down like a foot later and wind up getting smashed between the forks here. And honestly, that's probably why you see so many error 10s on this thing. So get a bunch of those cables and build one out for a tester, because here's what your next step is going to be. You need to have both of the cables all set up, have them connected to the switches and like an old wiped out pair of brake levers. Go ahead, carefully pop these out. Okay, get under that connector there and pop these two out. Take your test cables, plug them in. Okay, grab your test display, fire it up. And there you go. No more error 10. Motor sounds good. A little bit of a rotor problem maybe, but yeah, no more error 10. And again, that was basically a break in those cables there. I'll show you this diagram I made again. So if any of these cables here get broken, that's an error 10. But that's it. That's all it can really be. It can be the switches, it can be the display, it's probably the cables, or this box, or possibly the controller. So there you go. There will be a test on Friday.